Good evening. My name is Dale Wetzel. I am the host of the Legislature Today radio show. We're broadcasting live from the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar in downtown Bismarck. And we have our specials tonight at the Peacock Alley. Should you be out and about in Bismarck and want to come down, we have discounts on BAM mugs. And BAM is an acronym, and B stands for big and M stands for mug. And that's all I'm going to mention about that. And it's quite a healthy portion of beer or whatever it is you're drinking, and it's a reasonable price, and it's a wonderful atmosphere, and we would urge you to come down if you're out and about in Bismarck, North Dakota this evening. We have with us this evening a group of folks with about which we're going to be discussing with them child care in North Dakota, specifically child care, the needs thereof in western North Dakota with the expansion of the economy. We'll be introducing our guests in a moment here. But first, we're going to be talking about what happened in the legislature today in terms of what was voted on, what bills were heard, those kinds of things. In the House, there were a number of tax bills voted on. A proposed 2-year suspension of the North Dakota income tax was defeated. This would have essentially given us a trial run of what it's like to live without a state income tax in North Dakota for 2 years. The state treasury would have collected approximately $1 billion. The proposal was advertised as big and bold and aggressive, but in the end it was dead. It was killed 63 to 23. The North Dakota House decided that that was a bit too big of a step to take, even with a burgeoning budget surplus such as we have in North Dakota. There was also a proposal for an income tax credit for renters, which would have provided a benefit of up to $360 for folks who rent their homes and their apartments. That would have saved folks who rent approximately $62 million. It would have represented a benefit of $62 million over 2 years in state income tax credits. That was defeated as well. Also, another one another bill that went the way of all flesh was a proposal for a $400 one-time state income tax credit for anyone who lived in North Dakota for 1 year. And this was a 1-year, one-time income tax credit as a way of distributing a portion of the North Dakota budget surplus back to the taxpayers. That would have meant $212 million in benefit over a single year for taxpayers. That was defeated 62 to 24. One of the bills that passed was a rather interesting debate because it was a bill was approved to extend a sales tax exemption for wind energy projects. This is worth approximately $24 million to the industry over 2 years. Right now, there is a sales tax exemption for new wind energy projects on the books. This is scheduled to expire in June of 2015. The bill that was approved would extend that tax incentive to June of 2017. And the reason that the outcome was interesting was because the Finance and Tax Committee, the House Finance and Tax Committee, which examined this bill at length, recommended that it be defeated. And during the floor debate, the chairman of the Finance and Tax Committee, his name is Wes Belter, he's a Republican from Fargo, and also the Fargo Republican Majority Leader, Al Carlson, both made extended speeches about how this sales tax exemption should be discontinued, that the wind energy industry was mature and that it needed to stand on its own, and that it was difficult to wean an industry from state subsidy support, but this was the time to do it. In the words of Representative Carlson, well, the majority of the House did not agree with that analysis. The bill was approved 55 to 33. It will now go to the North Dakota Senate unless it is reconsidered tomorrow, which could happen, but we will see whether it does. In the North Dakota Senate, the Senate unanimously approved a proposal to add 3 district judges to North Dakota's judicial system. Right now, North Dakota has 44 judges. This bill would make that number 47 judges, 47 district judges. And district judges handle civil trials, they handle criminal trials, they handle the bulk of the work of North Dakota's judicial system. And especially in western North Dakota, the workload has been rising, and the Chief Justice of North Dakota, Gerald Vandewall, has asked the legislature to add judges because he says that's the way that this increased workload, that these personnel additions are needed to handle this increased workload. One of the judgeships, according to the bill, would go into Fargo, where there has been a shortage of judges for some time. There's also been a recent expansion of the county courthouse to provide office space for this person. And the other 2 judgeships would go in the Northwest District in North Dakota, which is the heart of oil country. The Northwest District includes the communities of Williston and Minot. It also includes Watford City and Stanley. The reason I mention those 2 communities is that they used to have resident district judges in them, but they were removed as part of a court consolidation plan that went along during the 1990s, and now we're finding out that we might need judges in those communities after all. But the Supreme Court will decide what happens in terms of, if the bill is approved, where those judgeships will go. And speaking of oil development and the increasing stress on a variety of social programs and networks in western North Dakota as a result of oil development, we're here to speak this evening about child care in North Dakota, specifically child care in western North Dakota. This hour is sponsored by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. This is the subject of child care is an important one to this organization. We have here to speak with us this evening Mr. Blake Crosby. He is the Business Center Manager of North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral. We also have State Representative Kathy Hawken. She's a Republican from Fargo and one of the legislature's more passionate advocates for child care. We also have Mr. Brady Pelton, who is the Deputy Director of the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. And he's probably won't be saying much, but we like having him around anyway. Representative Hawken, the governor's budget, Governor Jack Dalrymple's budget proposal includes $5 million for the Department of Commerce to distribute as grants to essentially try to increase the supply of child care, the number of child care spots in North Dakota. First of all, is this adequate in your judgment? And if it is not, what should be done?
Well, certainly we're pleased that there is some money in the governor's budget. We actually had a meeting last Friday with a number of the people who are involved in how do we move forward with the needs, and they are many. We have lots of children and no space for them. So we were looking at some other possibilities of adding to that $5 million. The one thing I would say is that facilities are good. You need them. But if we don't have quality people within those facilities taking care of the children, they really aren't worth a lot. So to me, there's 2 sides to that coin. You certainly need the places, but even more, you need really good quality people. And again, with all of the things that are happening in the oil patch, the salaries of the McDonald's workers, everyone, are a little bit higher. So it's very difficult to find and keep child care workers. So
what do we do about this?
Well, we had, I thought, a rather wonderful bill. It was Bill 1422, and we called it the Child Care Stabilization Initiative. And in many respects, it is an answer to the crisis that's there right now. We have a number of centers that are close to shutting their doors because they cannot cash flow the operations. you can't raise the rates on children like you can on hamburgers or books, and so there, that reaches a point of they can't be there, and so this is an issue, and this particular initiative would have provided incentives based on the number of children, the type of license, the age of children, the special needs. So it would be somewhat like what we have as funding formula for our public schools that would have allowed for some help with operational costs for daycare centers.
Why are we referring to this in the past tense?
Well, we're referring to it in the past tense because it was amended today. And I just, within the last couple hours, found out that they took the majority of the money out. They left $1.6 million for technical assistance, which certainly is important. That is a piece that helps with the training, and with Blake often goes in to help with business plans because that's an important component as well. So the technical assistance is important, but the money to stop the bleeding is no longer there.
How much money was that?
$15 million, which is about half of what we really probably need. But this was, for the most part, for the western part of the state. There was some of the money to go east, but that would have been by competitive grants, and they would have had to have already reached some of the quality standards. In the west, we would have given them some additional time to get to a quality standard point and could receive money without being there right now. But it would have enabled centers to stay open, and I'm not real sure now that they will be able to.
So where does this go from here?
Well, they also made a number of rule changes, which I find very interesting because it's not a committee that really is all that knowledgeable about what is appropriate and what is not. They changed the number of children at each of the age groups, and it's fine if you want to warehouse students or warehouse children, but that really isn't what we're after. We're after the quality that the parent feels really good about leaving that child in the morning and going to work and doing a good job for their employer, and their children are happy and well tended when they pick them up after work. We don't want to just, we could open up a jail and put them in if we just wanted to warehouse them. And so I'm concerned about that. They would allow for a non-licensed facility if it was in a business. And are talking about you could have one in a strip mall. You don't need to have any outside availability for small children. These are things I don't feel meet what all of our citizens talked about when they came to the 2020 meetings. Every single 2020 meeting all around the state, childcare was the number one issue. And yet, in our infinite wisdom in the legislature, and you've watched it for a number of years, apparently we don't think it's all that important.
Mr. Crosby, could you, you're the business center manager for the North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral. Could you tell us what that organization is and does?
Thank you, Dale. North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral, we're split up into two halves. There's Lutheran Social Services is responsible for training, technical assistance, and consultation in the western half of North Dakota, and Lakes and Prairies Community Action Partnership, which sponsors us in the eastern part of North Dakota. Basically, our primary objective is advocacy and training, consultation, and technical assistance for child care providers. My responsibility, I'm a numbers person. I do business plans, I analyze existing businesses' financial statements so that if they're in financial trouble or they're wondering about their finances, I can try to provide them some assistance and some help to make sure that at a minimum they at least break even at the end of the day. If it's somebody that wants to start a child care business, I'll do the business plan for them to make sure that at a minimum it cash flows. And I think what Representative Hawken indicated earlier is extremely important. Childcare really is a workforce situation. It's an economic development situation. We spend a lot of time and effort and money trying to recruit these young parents to come back into North Dakota. The young parents that we're recruiting to come back, they have different expectations. One of their expectations is that they both want to work. And if they have children, there has to be a place to provide for their children to provide child care for those children so that mom and dad can be in the workforce. And as we look, especially in the oil patch, where we're so short of workers, I don't think we should be trying to eliminate any people that want to work from being able to go into that workforce. I'm especially concerned for those communities that are looking to try to fill those slots in kind of that secondary workforce, and I want to use that term very generously and very loosely. Banks need tellers. Schools need teachers. We need city policemen. We need highway patrolmen. We need city workers. We need county workers. And those persons are not drawing down a salary like you might expect from your typical oil patch workers. They need to be able to afford childcare. They need to have accessibility. It needs to be a quality situation, and it needs to be affordable. That is what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to be progressive. We're trying to provide some financial, economic stability, especially to the western part of North Dakota, for that stabilization. Hopefully these communities will be able to retain some of those people and continue to be a vital and prosperous community long after the oil thing is gone.
You mentioned, sir, that you help child care businesses develop business plans.
Yes.
Okay, I'm coming to you and I want to have a child care business in western North Dakota. How much am I going to have to pay my employees, and how much am I going to have to charge the parents of my customers? How much am I going to have to charge the parents who bring children to my facility in order to make it work? I'm just trying to get some idea of the financial burden here.
Childcare is a very, very low profit, if at all, industry. So what you're going to have to pay is based on the going rates in the oil patch. And you could easily be talking $12, $13, $14, $15 plus benefits. If you work that through the pipeline, you may have to charge parents $250, $300 a week per child. Now, again, if you're employed by the oil companies, you can afford that. But if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, if you're a city policeman, you just can't afford that. So, and those services are important. So we need some sort of a stabilization, some help with their operational costs, so that those community people that are stabilizing that community, that are critical to the infrastructure of that community, can find affordable child care and help that community grow.
So, Representative Hawken, I imagine this is one of the places where the legislature comes in terms of providing some financial aid. Could you just talk about what your ideas have been and what the ideas of others have been in terms of how to bridge the gap between what is affordable and what has to be charged?
I've been working on this issue as long as I've been in the legislature, so the last 17 years. And we've tried a number of different ideas. We've tried tax credits, and there have been a variety. Up until 2 sessions ago, when we were able to developed a plan that was called training, retention, and recruitment. Anyway, those three things. And there was some federal money available. And so for the first time ever, we had some money to try it. And it was awesome. The number of people who got trained, and they did the curriculum, it's all online. It's extremely good. And we were keeping some of those people that were trained. And there were some incentives to continue the training and to continue staying with that program. Last session, we were able to convince the legislators, because the need was becoming more apparent, and the economic development people really helped with that. We were able to get some general fund money. So last session is the first time we have ever had any general fund money put into child care. And again, it was for recruiting, training, and retaining child care workers. And a number of communities bought in and helped with this, and so we were able to do more than we originally thought we would be able to do. The stats on it, the data is phenomenal as to what it accomplished. This is certainly a much bigger program, and this really, I hesitate to use the word Band-Aid, but in a sense it sort of is, because this is a crisis. And this kind of a program going in with bigger dollars would allow, well, we know for sure there are 3 centers in Minot that may not be open a month from now. This would allow some help to places like that. Bowman, which has a beautiful new center, but can't cash flow. We could have done a few things like that to keep them open, to keep them going, while we try and figure out what is the right thing to do. And we're not sure. I mean, we're not going to subsidize forever, but we've subsidized a lot of things in this state. You've been around to see that. We've subsidized ethanol, and we've subsidized PACE programs and farmers and horses and a number of other things. I think children are a lot more important than some of those other things that we have put money into as a state. It's concerning, particularly when we asked for citizen input in the 2020, and all of these people came and they said this was an issue. And yet it looks like, and it's really, so far, only one committee is saying, no, it's not. It's not worth it, and we don't want to do it.
How does, in your ideal world, how would this issue be resolved?
Right now?
Yes.
We'd pass this bill the way it was written.
We'd have, $15 million?
$15 million. And like I said, that's maybe half. And it would do a little for the East, but not nearly what the East needs. I always have to laugh just a little bit, because child care has been an issue for a lot of years, but until it became an issue in the West, it wasn't an issue. But it's nice to have some guys saying, yes, child care is important. We need to do this. And I really appreciate their help and support. That's been a very nice thing.
The woman we've been listening to just now is Representative Kathy Hawken. She's a Republican state representative from Fargo and a longtime child care advocate. We're also discussing child care in western North Dakota with Mr. Blake Crosby, the Business Center Manager for North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral, and we'll be speaking to both of them in our next half hour as well. This is the Legislature Today radio show. We're broadcasting from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, and it's BAM Mondays. BAM stands for Big Mug, and A stands for something that I will not speak presently. And anyway, it's a large quantity of beer, if that's what you like, that you can purchase and drink in a very wonderful ambient atmosphere. Lots of historical ambiance and friendliness at the Peacock Alley Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck. We're discussing child care with Mr. Blake Crosby, who is the Business Center Manager for North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral, and Fargo State Representative Kathy Hawken, who is a Republican from Fargo. And Representative Hawken, part of the Child Care Stabilization Initiative, the way it was changed, I understand that there's a fairly comprehensive child care study that might be in the offing. Could you talk about what that would entail?
Well, actually, the bill that I think it's 1356 was originally a funding bill for Head Start. Had about $6 million in it, and the Education Committee felt that was a little rich. We are one of only 5 states that don't put any money into Head Start, but it gave us a vehicle to work on a comprehensive study for all of early childhood education, the child care, the pre-K, Head Start, both public and private, and to really take an in-depth look at how we are educating those young minds. And it's an important piece. Brain development, as we know now, happens in those first 3 to 4 years. So we have to make sure that those of us who are involved with those little brains make sure they're stimulated and learning. And the research shows that if, in fact, you do that, the success rate of those children is much higher than without it. it could, and hopefully will, encourage the graduation from high school. It will keep our prison population down. And it seems like a stretch, but it's not. The Federal Reserve actually was one of the first groups that really got into looking at this research, which I always thought was hysterical. But that's how I sort of got into this area, was after going to a workshop where a gentleman from the Federal Reserve talked about the true need and advantages of early childhood education.
What do you think this study will tell us that we don't already know?
Well, what I'm hopeful, because this study will be done through the Department of Public Instruction, and we have a dynamic new leader there in Kristen Baszler, and we will probably divide it up into different areas and then bring it all back and circle it together and look at the big picture. But what are some of the answers? How can we make the child care businesses better? What kinds of things do we need to do? How can we allow school districts to do, those that want to do early childhood education? How can we find additional money for the Head Start? We have, between the East and West, probably 900 students who could be in Head Start if we could find the money to get them in. So the needs are definitely there. The will of obviously of the people of North Dakota, who are saying these are things that are important, is there. Now we've got to find some answers and figure out how to do it.
Representative Hawken and Mr. Crosby, does state regulation pose a barrier to the establishment of child care businesses? Is state regulation such that it's a barrier to entry? Is it too elaborate for most folks to take on? Could you just describe what the role, if there is a significant role of state regulation in terms of whether or not someone starts up a child care business?
I'll answer that, Dale. Or at least I'll take the first shot at it anyway, then Kathy can have the second shot. I'm sorry, Representative Hawken. I do not think that regulations impede the capacity or the growth of child care in North Dakota whatsoever. One of the things we have to be extremely cautious of and knowledgeable of is that those rules and regulations are in place to protect the health and safety of those small children. And I would refer to our neighboring state of Minnesota, who's had an alarming number of deaths in child care within the last year, and they're looking at changing some of the rules and regulations strictly because there wasn't enough oversight. The rules and regulations were maybe a little bit lax. There were some things going on that shouldn't have been going on that weren't caught on the front end. So I think we need to be really very, very careful when you're talking about the rules and regulations. Those little people, they can't fend for themselves, and they need good adult caregivers to make sure they're in a healthy and safe environment. We talked a little bit earlier about all of a sudden child care seems to be at the top of the hit parade. I'm a member of the Economic Developers Association of North Dakota, and it was not uncommon some years back before the oil boom started that as they were trying to recruit new businesses to come in their communities, one of the top 2 or 3 questions was, what do you have for child care? Because that is the expectations of the workforce, is that both mom and dad want to work, and to do that, they need to have that accessibility to that child care. To take off a little bit on the study that we talked about, one of the things I would like to see come out of the study is, are there some funding mechanisms that the state can use to start up the child care business and stabilize them, get them going, start them up for 2 or 3, 4 years until they get on their feet and they can get some cash flow and go and do what they need to do on their own. And secondly, what are the various business models out there that we need to look at? There's 3 types of licensing in child care. There's family child care, which you can have up to 7 children. There's group child care, you can have up to 18, and there's center-based care, which is 19 and above. There's a different business model for all those 3 licensing types. And we need to really try to get a handle on the variety of the business models that may be applicable in order to make sure those child care businesses, once they get started, after a point in time, they can run on their own year after year after year.
What's the most common type of the three types of child care facilities that you mentioned? What's the most common type that people are trying to get started now?
I can't tell you what type they're trying to get started, but the most common type is family-based child care. But when you're looking at sheer numbers, obviously center-based care has more economies of scale. You can have, I will use the city of Crosby, not named after me. They want to put a center for 100 children in their community. Well, you can certainly try to find 5 individuals who want to start a group or a group facility for 18 children apiece. That's probably not very likely given the employment in western North Dakota. But one center for 100 children, much more financially feasible, much better return on investment, much easier to cash flow up to a certain point. So right now, capacity is the issue. And along with that capacity, we want to have some quality. Western North Dakota needs capacity childcare. We need those group 18s, and we need those centers for 50, 60, 70 children. The school systems are growing leaps and bounds. Before they get to be 5, they got to be 3 and 4. So that's kind of the way it works.
Representative Hawken, I'd like you to speak to whether state regulation has a role in the development of child care facilities.
I would say that one of the things, in last session we put together a chart of all of the different agencies that touch childhood and early childhood education, and it is very colorful, and there are a lot of agencies. So my ultimate goal is that we get all of these agencies. We actually did get them all in the same room, and they all talked, but we got federal dollars here, and it's hard to get everybody to leave their turf behind. I would love to see, and I'm hoping that one of the things that comes out of the study is someone to own this segment of our population. And I think perhaps the best place would be in the Department of Public Instruction, where we could put all of the licensing there. Part of it is in DPI, part of it's in Human Services. I think there is some facility licensing elsewhere, so it's all over the place. So in that sense, you got to know where you fit. We've got some great people, both at the state and out in doing the work, that have some expertise that I think can help us get this in the right direction. And if we can get, if we can stop the crisis right now, which is what this bill would have done. And maybe still will. There's always hope the Senate will, the House never wants to admit the Senate fixes things, but in this case, I sure hope they do.
Is there a particular size of child care facility that parents are looking for according to the feedback that was received from Vision 2020 and the various? I
don't think there's one specific kind. Each child is different, and for some children, a center type atmosphere with a lot of activity is the perfect thing. For another child, maybe being with just 5 to 7 kids, and it's more like a family situation, would be better. So that's sort of a personal decision.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Dale. I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that a cup of coffee is not a nickel anymore, and you don't get free refills. Mom and Dad, Grandpa and Grandma, they don't stay in North Dakota anymore. They've worked hard. They go south for the winter. So that family, friends, and neighbor child care is not nearly as available as it used to be. And as we recruit these new parents to come back into the state, these expats, as they come back into the state, they've been exposed typically to center-based care because when they're in Minneapolis or Chicago, wherever, they don't know anybody, so they navigate towards center-based care. And they bring that attitude back with them. If they have a relative that's available in small communities that's doing some child care, they will certainly use them. But for the most part, that sort of care is really no longer available. We've moved beyond that. as demographics and economics have changed in the state of North Dakota.
We have on the telephone Southwest Director Shirley Brenstrup, and
yes.
She was involved in a planning. She's a planning director for a study that one of the elements of the study was the need or the demand for child care in western North Dakota. Ms. Brenstrup, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, ma'am. Could you please tell us what sort of just tell us about the sort of the importance of child care in western North Dakota in terms of being able to attract a workforce and keep it there.
Certainly. Well, we started doing local community planning last February, and that issue just came to the top immediately in every county that we went to. And there were all sorts of people standing up and saying, this is our number one problem. And they were not necessarily parents. They were those grandparents. So we knew that we had to do something. We started in putting a group together last summer. We met by conference call, had a meeting here in Dickinson, and then a summit in the fall. And also commissioned a study exploring the future needs of child care in North Dakota, which indicated that in North Dakota we need 946 family daycares. That's in-home type of things, or group facilities, and then another 92 centers. Bowman just built a center for 40-some children at the cost of $1 million. So 92 centers over the next 10 years is, $92 million. You can build them cheaper maybe, but, it's difficult. And our problem out here in western North Dakota is that people in daycare are primarily older and are getting out of that business. So we need to entice more people here on the family level, especially in our smaller communities. Big daycare centers are not the issue there. So we need small family daycares or smaller group centers that will work for them. So it's a tough issue. And going into that 10 years in that study that we had done, we need another 3,000 people to work in these. Bowman, again, they built that facility, but they can't get their numbers up to that 40 because they don't have people to work there. They cannot compete in that market. And there's no housing. So if you're going to build a big center, you better build, a couple apartments with it, because it's, you need to have housing for your workers here in western North Dakota.
Ma'am, I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you say that there was a need for like 940-something family type child care facilities, yes, and also 90-plus centers?
Yes.
Okay.
That's statewide, and that's to meet 50% of the need here in North Dakota.
And how do we satisfy that demand? I mean, what sort of policy steps can the legislature take, or can anyone take, to bring in that, to encourage the establishment of that many child care businesses?
Well, I think that's where that study comes to play. We really have to sit down and say, what are our roles here? There are employers that will help. There are, counties that will help and cities that will help. Everybody will do something, but we need a plan, and we need to know, how can we do these? Are cooperative from parents' side, does that make sense? Parent cooperative? Or is it an employer cooperative, which I think would work much better, where they can bring some of the things that they have in their business to play, like accounting or hiring folks and things like that. Each community is going to have a little different solution. So it's the solution part that we're having a lot of trouble with. And not having those folks, the first thing we have to do is entice people to come to North Dakota and to put together those centers, or if they're here, to open up their home as a family daycare.
And how do we go about doing that? Are there ideas that are being batted around that would be helpful in this regard?
Well, I know we've talked about doing, on your community channel, an hour-long type of educational program that would help people to understand, can I make money at a daycare, which you can. What are the rules and regulations, and how do I meet those, and who do I talk to, and how to talk to people in your area. There are wonderful providers. And this is definitely not a provider issue. We have wonderful providers in the state of North Dakota, and I was very impressed with those folks that came to our workshops, who talked about their business, who are truly concerned about children in this area especially. I mean, some of those kids are spending 10 hours in a truck in the summertime. It's kind of, it doesn't need to be that way, but we all have to do something. We all have to do something.
Ma'am, is this a matter of a child care business not being able to be affordable to a parent or established in such a way that the rates are sufficient to make a profit, but maybe the rates are too high to actually for parents to afford? Or is it a situation where there simply aren't enough folks to establish and run the kind of businesses that are needed?
Both.
I guess. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The cost of infant child care in North Dakota for 1 year, an infant, is about $8,000. That's a lot of money. I mean, it costs less probably to send your child to, a smaller university here in North Dakota. So, the cost of daycare equals the cost of sending your child to college. So that's an issue for everyone. If you are, in fact, a lower-income family that you don't have that great $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year job, you've got two $30,000 a year jobs, that's a big chunk out of your income. And then for lower-income people, North Dakota does have an assistance program for child care. But, those folks, 72% of the people that participated in that program had a co-payment. And the average was 21% of their income to make that co-payment just for their daycare. Now, if you've already got increases in your rents and things like that, if you're already paying 50% of your income for rent and another 21% for daycare, oh my God, you're not going to live here. It's that simple.
Ma'am, could you tell me what it is you do for a living? I understand that you're the Southwest REAP Director. Could you tell me what that entails?
Well, Southwest REAP is a small nonprofit in western North Dakota. We cover the 8 counties. We have a micro loan program, and we make loans to daycares and people who are, want to start up a business. They do business home inspection loans. That kind of thing, just whatever. It kind of reflects, the loans that we do reflect pretty much our economy. They're small loans, primarily in smaller communities. And then we partnered with the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties to put together the Vision West project, which is a HUD-funded project for a regional plan.
And how did that work out, ma'am?
Well, we started in February, like I said. We started with local plans in each of the counties. And then this year we'll begin our regional planning.
I wanted to bring in Representative Kathy Hawken, Republican from Fargo, and Mr. Blake Crosby, the Business Center Manager for the North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, into our discussion here. Mr. Crosby and Representative Hawken, based on what Ms. Brenstrup was saying, I must say, it sounds to me like almost an intractable problem. How does one resolve it?
I think that that is part of the problem. It's big, so what we need to do is start taking small bites. And I really felt that the bill that we had put into the legislature this year offered that small bite to keep the KEEP centers open, to solve stop the bleeding, and then move forward. And I really enjoyed what Shirley had to say about how they're trying to plan and work with that and with small loans. I mean, there are all kinds of pieces to this puzzle, and it's going to take a lot of people working together to solve it. There isn't one answer, and that's the problem.
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you very much, Shirley, for the comments that you made, and Representative Hawken also. there is no cookie cutter out there. We have to look at a variety of different options so that parents of different financial means still have access to quality child care. There is no one answer for everything.
That's what makes the difference.
Huge difference.
Ms. Brenstrup, I didn't mean to, sound too gloomy here, but I based upon what you said, it does sound like that this is a very large and complex difficulty that we'll have to resolve here.
Yes, and I think that as a state, if we could provide some incentives to communities, it's going to take something, but it's some way to get, people together and start dealing with this issue. Some of them are. I mean, I guess everyone's trying to do something, but we need something big. And I think you have to have faith in our communities that if you give them part of the solution, whether it's financial or whatever, they have the capacity to solve their own problem, but they need help.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Brenstrup. Thank you for being on the phone with us this evening. We were the woman whose voice you just heard is Shirley Brenstrup. She's the Southwest Director of REAP, which is a nonprofit organization in southwestern North Dakota. We have also been speaking to Representative Kathy Hawken. She is a Republican from Fargo and an advocate for child care during her legislative career. We also been talking to Mr. Blake Crosby, the Business Center Manager for North Dakota Child Care Resource and Referral. And we also this hour has been sponsored by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, and we are grateful for their sponsorship. And we'll see how the child care issue unfolds in the legislature. It does sound like a very big and difficult problem. Thank you very much, everyone.